everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Boys, Season 2, Episode 7. It's called Butcher, Baker, Candlestick, Maker. It's a good title. So full spoilers for the episode as always. So this is a big one. This is the penultimate episode of the season. That's right. Next one's the finale. We're already near the end.
Yeah, and it felt like it, to be fair.
It kind of does in a lot of ways. It's funny because as I was watching this about 2/3 through, I was thinking to myself that this has a lot of highs, and it had even better highs to come in the last chunk. I would say as a full episode, it's probably, I don't know if weakest is the right word, but it's the less kind of fully put together, I think, since the first couple, in the sense that it all came together at the end, but everything felt very separate before then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't think I felt it as much as you did.
I think, do you know what, actually, I guess maybe actually what I'm saying is that there were so many different strands to what was going on, is that each one felt a little...
It felt a bit disconnected.
Just that, you know, some of them could maybe used a bit more time, you know, to breathe.
Yeah, okay. And this was on the shorter side of these episodes, clocking it around 55 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was a bit shorter, so... which, I mean, again, this is only because the bar is so goddamn high. This is not me complaining, because I actually think this episode is really good. And
yeah, got some great stuff in it.
There's some big highs, especially towards the end. Some heartwarming moments. There's the gore. There's the
some self-immolation.
There's a lot of porn, which we'll get into. I really thought we'd filled the dick quota last week, but apparently not.
Not even close.
So a lot of that. Certainly some things didn't go where I was expecting them to. Lamplighter obviously being the notable thing, where it felt like it was going another way, and they took this different path with it. Admittedly, it went to a funny place with him. I mean, it's weird to say that him setting himself on fire is funny, but it did actually... Even something as simple as Huey afterwards, when he's explaining to others and almost kind of apologising that he took the Star Witness to the evil enemy's base to save Starlight. He's like, well, I didn't know I was going to set myself on effing fire, did I? Which is a fair point, I think.
It is. I don't think I've ever laughed at self-immolation before. Usually that's quite a serious thing, but here it happened and I just laughed at the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
I was here for it, and then you have Huey chopping off his hand to get out with a broken glass bottle that he smashes up.
Yes, because his hand scatters all over the building, which we see him using when he gets in.
Yeah, so he has to snap the wrist first to break the bone, and then chop the flesh away with the glass.
My favourite part about it, though, is actually that he almost leaves and then realises he needs his hand, so he has to turn back to come and get it. That's the favourite detail.
That is very funny. I don't know if that's as funny as other people's reactions afterwards when he's just there with a hand.
Oh, that's a separate issue. That's different scenes. I'm talking about purely...
I mean, it is. I'm just talking about, hand-related comedy.
Purely talking about the scene where the hand is taken off itself. Because their stuff basically amounts to the watching the porn stuff, which is just... This happens every so often in like a TV show or a movie, and I never understand it. I never understand like characters in movies who just sit and watch porn like this. I don't get it. What?
As a rule, I agree. I think here it's just he is so just I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, but porn has a purpose. You watch it while it's doing something. I don't have to spell that out for everyone. You're just sitting there.
No. I agree. I think he's intentionally leaning into just the depravity of it, of just being like, screw it. I'm just going to sit here and watch porn just because it's not the done thing, essentially.
Okay. But it's one of those things that sticks out to me. And it always... Because it's not the first time I've seen it. It's something.
No, I agree. But here I got it. And Huey's even like, dude, come on. You can't watch it while the sun's up. That's the rules. And... And he's like, I'm going to die. Who gives a shit? I'm going to watch it.
Yes, but it's just
miserable.
It turns out the place that he's leading Huey to is a lie. He just wanted to go to where his statue was so he could kill himself in front of the statue. But he's obviously disappointed that the statue is no longer there. But he does it anyway. He sets himself on fire. This actually, though, does have a beneficial effect for Starlight, because Starlight, who we see, of course, taken out by Black Noir at the start of the episode, Starlight's dozy mother decided to tell Ashley that she was going to meet her daughter. at a coffee shop. So they knew where she was, and Black Noir takes her out pretty quickly. By surprise, we should say, though. She was caught blindsided.
Yeah, I mean, just as she's kind of gone, wait a second, they could be watching, and then bang.
Yeah, so... but because the fire alarm goes off, there's a flashing light in the cell, because it's otherwise like Starlight proof, because it's just a padded cell with nothing in it that would give her power.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the lights are they're just like glow sticks, right? Because I think the idea is it's electrical power that she absorbs, right?
Oh yeah, on the walls, but was like a normal light for the fire light.
Yeah.
That's above the door, and that starts flashing, so that gives her the power.
I appreciate that Vought are up to their health and safety codes, even in their soup-proof cells.
Yeah, I mean, you could say this is a bit of an oversight, but you could also say that it wasn't designed specifically for her. This was more just like there's a general basis they follow for containing suits.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of like it's just unfortunate for them that this had a loophole for her. But I was actually looking forward because obviously Black Noir grabs her almost immediately after she gets out of the cell, and we get a pretty great fight scene where she's trying to fight back, but he's just too good at this.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
He's thrown her through pillars. It feels very brutal.
Smashing her head repeatedly against the big, the big table that they've got, and smashes the table. Because obviously she's got some enhanced strength, I assume still.
Yeah, and it's really brutal, and she's getting choked out, and I'm kind of thinking like Huey just left this room. This is literally because they basically trip over Lamplighter's body at one point in the middle of this fight. So I'm like, okay, Huey's going to... I mean, obviously Huey can't take on Black Noir, but if he sneaks up behind him when he's like choking her...
Just gets one hit in, and then, she can do the rest.
Yeah, I don't know if he's, he's stab-proof, but let's say he gets a stab in the back of the neck or something. Like, something...
Just something to get his attention.
Yes. I actually thought it was a bit more of an uplifting moment that Maeve was the one who came and it was obviously funny how she did it, obviously, but I mean, but even the fact that Maeve kind of came in and saved her and didn't go with her, which kind of sums up her and Starlight's relationship since the start of the show, is that Maeve ultimately feels all these regrets about who she is and her place in the Seven and wants to help Annie not become that, but she's too kind of, I don't know, self-defeated at this point to actually want it for herself.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of popped for that a little bit. Of course, the almond bars came back because he's got a nut allergy, which
a tree nut allergy
adds a whole new meaning to the scene where he was very upset as the techie was eating the almond bar. But
it does, yeah.
But I love the moment where she runs into Huey and Huey's already saved the mother out of the cell, and she's like, Huey, and there's just this moment where they smell at each other where she's realised, and obviously it's funny because the mother barges in and takes the hug instead, but it's a sweet moment because we always talk about the heart in this show, and the heart was on full display in this moment. Which, given everything up until this point in this episode, was her getting the shit kicked out of her, him being forced to watch porn. One of them was almost, because it was all porn parodies of the Seven, and he was going through like a stack of them, and he got to the one at the end, and it's like, oh, Starlight takes, and he's just like, no, I don't want to watch that one. I don't want to watch that one. Don't want to watch that.
I did like, he was like, you can just like download all these, because he's flipping through a stack of actual DVDs.
Yeah. Even the fact that the one they're watching with Homelander, where he's like having sex with some guy's wife, is kind of almost almost a dark joke, because that's kind of what happened. Obviously not consensual, but that is what happened with Butcher in a way. Like it's
that's even part of the consensual bit is even almost part of the joke here at the end of the scene.
Oh yeah, because he's saying, hey, let's not be the cuck, let's go be the guys who F the wife consensually, of course, and then there's like a little add-on joke at the end. So that plot was good. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It was. I would say I really appreciated the I don't know if hope's necessarily the right word, but the heart at the end. Kind of gave it it had a point to it. It wasn't just misery, right? Because it could have very easily just been misery.
It could have been, and. Yeah, I mean, because obviously my first thought when he set himself in fire was like, wait, Huey's just been stranded in the middle of the Vought building, like on his own with no one to like take him away.
Yeah, that's not exactly the place you want to be.
Especially since earlier in the episode, Homelander actively said that he wanted to rip out his spine because he was upset that he couldn't kill Starlight because Stormfront was like, no, we've got leverage, there's value of keeping her alive for now. So. We got that stuff. I guess like I was almost expecting a little bit more. Like, see when they got to the statue before the actual immolation happened, I was kind of thinking, Yeah, I was expecting it to be more of a journey through the building or something. There's more steps to this where they were almost caught or something, and I felt like it skipped a couple of beats. But then everything after this point was fantastic. So I mean, it's
Yeah, I get where you come from. It was fairly easy getting in, but I mean, at the end of the day, everyone was kind of out. They were going in through a secret entrance.
I mean, you have
sort of
to
thing.
admit, Lamplighter's hand scan still working in the building when he's literally not been active on the team for years is a bit easy.
I buy it. I buy it though, because from personal experience here, companies are terrible at updating these things.
I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily see that as unlikely either, but it's just one of those things where I was talking about how there's maybe just too many plots try to like steal time away from the episode in this one. So there's a couple of like there's a couple of things like this where it's just like they have to sort of rush through part of it just to get to the good bits, and it feels like it's doing that a couple of times in this episode for me, which is not to outweigh all the good things, but it's I definitely felt it a little bit here. And it's one of these things where they've got so much to do because they want to leave it in this place for getting to the finale. So I'm not really going to hold it against them, but it was there. It was there. I'll call it out when I see it because the last like 4 or 5 episodes have been pretty much perfect. This one's a little less than perfect. I
get where you're coming from. Like I said, I didn't really feel it as much, but I can see, if I'm just looking at it, thinking back, I can see, where you're coming from with it.
So jump over, again, a lot of other characters were doing things that we didn't get to see much of. MM was with Gracie. They go to the doctor. What was his name? Vogelbaum, there you go. Who we saw last season, of course, and he's the one who raised Homelander, which we knew. They come to him,
yes,
basically try to get him to testify again, and ultimately he's like, hey, I've got kids, I've got grandkids, and Gracie, you lost grandchildren, so no matter how right this is and how much I think it's the right thing to do, it doesn't matter how right it is. I'm too scared that my family are going to be killed for it, so it's not happening. And of course, Butcher then has to come in to see him, and this comes after Butcher's had a visit, or his mother came and said, oh, your dad's dead, come and see me at the hotel. It's a trick, his dad's there, played by none other than John Noble. Walter Bishop himself appeared here.
A little bit of a reunion for this pair, because they were both in Lord of the Rings together.
I don't remember Ireland being in Lord of the Rings, but I'll take your word for it.
I don't think they shared many scenes. Obviously, Carl Urban was Aomer. That one, we've been over that before, but John Noble was...
don't say obviously to me, I don't know, that's obvious.
Well, obviously to others, and we've mentioned it in these reviews before, so I'm not spending too much time on it.
The only reason why I know John Noble was in Lord of the Rings because it was brought up in Legends of Tomorrow. That's the only reason why I know that.
He played a Denethor, and I'm pretty sure he's dead by the end when this happens, but he would have essentially been Aomer's father-in-law by the end, I'm pretty sure.
No one cares.
I care.
No, literally no one cares. So we have here a scene which on its own is okay. So his father's a complete prick. He's like it sounds like he's an even worse version of Butcher, and his mother has to break up a fight. Butcher's going to strangle him, and it's all this thing. And on its own, I was kind of feeling in this scene. Now it's actually very important for later, but in the scene on its own, I was kind of thinking, I mean, this is nice and all, but I feel like, why are we doing this so close to the end of the season? This feels like it's something that should have been done earlier. I was kind of feeling like, why are we wasting time on this in this episode? But let me get to my point. When Butcher goes to see Vogelbaum.
Get there in the end.
Voltron.
I'm honestly quite impressed with myself that I remembered it.
Vogel Beach. So when he goes to see Vigil Bunny, he comes in and he says, look, this is the thing, they make a big deal that he's got like a security gate, and he lets Gracie in as soon as he hears who it is, and he does the same with Butcher, because he's obviously feeling apologetic. He's obviously in his old age, he's become very self-aware of what he's done and the monster that he created. And there's a moment when he's talking about Homelander as a kid, because Butcher wants to know, and he talks about how he was a nice kid. When he was like 6 years old, he was actually like a sweet little boy. He wanted to cuddle, he was the delightful little dude. But he wanted the strongest man on the planet. He wanted a tough guy. He wanted someone who was going to save the world, and he tried to train him into that. And it's what kind of resulted in the creation of the Homelander that we know. And you can see, and I was already thinking it, but Butcher gets it. Butcher, you can see it on his face. There's a moment here where, and he hates this, but he relates to Homelander. there's a moment when he realizes that Homelander had a shitty father just like him, and obviously Homelander's way worse than Butcher is, but there's a moment here where he feels like he relates to him just a touch, and he hates it. You can see it in his eyes.
Yeah. I still think you could have done the scene with his dad a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, you could have done.
And the point would still work. We'd remember it. They'd probably show it in the previously on, I guess, just to make sure it was in your mind. But I get why they wanted to do it in the same episode, just in case that you'd forget.
Yeah. But I mean, it was worth it for this moment though. Like, just to have that scene somewhere. I mean, yeah, admittedly, maybe it should have been earlier in the season, but it was worth it for this moment because, and then the more justification for it, though, I think honestly, is that it kind of bookends the episode in some way, because when Vandelbot comes into the hearing at the end, right? Vandelbaum, whatever his name is, I don't care. Right?
You just cannot do it, can you? Like, it was funnier a minute ago when you were just making up something, but that one sounded like you actually tried to get it right and just forgot what it was and just went, that sounds about right.
I mean, trying is a harsh word in that sense. I mean,
sure.
Spitting out the first thing that came to mind because it's not important. I don't want to dwell on it anymore. And yet we're still sitting here talking about it because you can't let it go. So, but when he comes out of the hearing at the end, and there's that moment where Homelander hears the name and he looks round. And then this is the other thing that I think is genius about this episode. As much as I've had some critiques of it, is that this is exactly what happened to Butcher earlier on in the episode. He's been blindsided with a surprise visit from, the closest thing he has to a father. This is his father who's coming into the room, and the look in his face, and then it cuts to Butcher. It cuts to Butcher watching it on the TV, and he goes, "Got you, like,
you nearly slipped it in there.
I nearly said it.
All season we've been so careful, and you nearly slipped.
Even his mother's dropping seed bombs in this episode. Because that's the thing, she admits that his father is, the C-bomb, and says that wasn't for him to like make amends before he dies. It was for Butcher. It was for him to. It was for him to, let go of this anger, let go of this, and be better, and be something better.
It's used a lot in this episode. Yeah, I think Butcher. I think it's when he's visiting Vogelbaum where he calls someone one. And it's like, that's, a bit whatever. He's like, it's a term of endearment where I'm from. It's like, it's true.
That's not that scene.
Is it not that scene?
No, that's Gia. He calls. That's that scene.
You're right. Yes. Yeah. I was forgetting where it was, but I remember the line.
Yeah, because Butcher threatens to kill all of his family. We should mention that. He threatens to murder every single person in his family.
And he's like, I'm going to start by going into that next room and bashing your daughter's brains in.
And then the daughter, after this threat, comes in with some tea for him. And he puts on the charm, of course, as he always does. But there's a moment where he sips the tea looking directly at Vandal Beach Bunny. And the way he's looking at him as he's sipping the tea is going to be a gift that's used for many a years, I assume.
I can tell you for a fact, it's already in use and has been for a couple of months because this smug look from the tea was in the trailer. So I've been seeing it for a while already.
So it leads to this thing where they think they've lost their star witness in Lamplighter, right? Because they're all pissed at Huey for doing this when they get back.
And I thought they were going to use Annie at this point, now that they'd rescued her. I thought, that's where they'll go with this. No,
but Butcher's like, don't worry, got it covered. And Gracie's like, what? What do you mean, no worries? Like, what are we talking about? And then we get the hearing itself, and then comes, Vogel Bananarama. And we have this scene where he's about to testify. He's sworn in. Everyone's sitting there waiting for it to happen. Everyone's butts are clenched because, okay, big things are about to happen. And then the guy running the hearing's head explodes. And then Vogelbot's head explodes. And then other random heads explode. And they keep exploding. I was shocked Gia's head didn't explode by the time this scene was over. She
got rushed away.
Yeah. So, but they're because even Homelander's like, oh, this is weird.
it's him and Stormfront are just there looking around going, what the hell is going on?
This isn't in our power. Is this you doing? Is this you?
Yeah. And you have to admit, it makes Vought look really, really guilty. Because obviously this is the hearing, this is them. Mm-hmm. And then just as the key witness comes in, heads start exploding. I think it's, I don't know if it's the judge or him that's head goes first, but it's like, it looks like someone's trying to cover up, right?
I obviously expected this scene to eventually end in a bad thing. However, I was thinking that maybe before the bad stuff happens, that there would be enough to get out that would maybe show the world the truth, to some extent. Partly because A, we're getting into season finale, so it's the time to have your big shake-up cliffhanger. Two, because given some of the stuff earlier in this episode where they're giving speeches to a crowd and they're saying things like hope and prayers, because the opening of the episode, because they're talking about this incident at the start of the episode where it's an incel, let's just call it what it is. He's basically seen all this propaganda from Homelander and Stormfront and starts to suspect that the foreign guy who runs the shop that he goes to might be a super terrorist. So he goes in with a gun and shoots him in the face. And it's a really dark opening. It's like,
it's possibly the strongest opening of any episode, at least this season.
Yeah, super, super dark. And it's really sad. Like, the guy's fear when he's got the gun pointed at him, and then the moment after he's lying there, it's very visceral. And like, this show obviously has a lot of dark humor. This scene is played with no humor at all. This scene is played completely for the stark punch in the face that it is. This is no, we're not sugarcoating this. This is what it is. And
even like the guy itself, it looks a bit horrified at the end because he genuinely believes this guy is a soup, right? And he's like, oh, you're bulletproof. And I don't think he genuinely believes he's going to kill someone here.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not like excusing him, but he looks like shocked as well, right? At the end of it.
I would suggest brain power here. Not that everyone should get to this point, but if you are in this point where you're convinced that someone might be bulletproof, maybe shoot them in the shoulder instead of the face, just in case. You might be wrong.
I agree, yeah.
Just a thought.
I mean, maybe go check yourself into a mental facility first.
Yeah, do that first. Admittedly,
and
yes.
And remove any access to firearms. But
I guess
if you're really in this situation, you've got your finger on the trigger, aim for the shoulder. I
guess what I'm saying is that the look of shock and horror and, guilt perhaps afterwards would suggest that maybe it would have been wiser to not go for something that would have instantly killed him. Just an idea.
And I think it's interesting that they played it that way because it does look like he genuinely believes everything that he's thinking here. He does not believe for a moment he's actually going to kill this guy until he does.
This ties into themes that we're already playing with the cult stuff. This is like someone who's been brainwashed into something, and then there's a rude awakening when everything comes crashing down when they realise just how much bullshit it is. But anyway, during this speech when they're talking to the crowd, they literally say thoughts and prayers. They use that phrase.
They do.
So one of the things...
They go... full MAGA is what I'm going to call it here.
So one of the things that I was thinking is that if they did get the truth out at the end and the hearing, before maybe some violent stuff happened, would be the sad part of the story would be that a lot of these people who are cheering for them during this whole America used to be great. I mean, they don't quite say the phrase, but they're just
they get just close enough that you go exactly what they're aiming for.
Yeah, they're kind of dancing around it a little bit. But all these people who are cheering for them, I was starting to think, are they going to find out the truth and support him anyway? Or even just say fake news.
I mean, if they did find out the truth and support him anyway, that I can't even say it would be a stretch.
No, I wouldn't. So that's why I thought it was maybe realistic that they might reveal everything here at the end to the world. Maybe not everything, but the idea that Homelander might just be a monster being the key thing.
Yeah.
And instead, of course, all these head explosions happen. We know who's doing this. The previously on did remind us of Cindy. I didn't see her in the scene though, unless she was like sneaking about somewhere.
No,
in the
I
background.
didn't see her either. I'm not even sure if she was inside. Maybe she was outside. I don't know what the range on her powers are. Because obviously, when she blew up Stillwell's head earlier on in the season, we didn't see her then.
No, of course not. Definitely a very useful tool if you're trying to keep people quiet.
Yeah. Like I said though, this does look like Vought, because Vought are the ones with the power, in control of all the people with the powers. This was clearly someone with a power that's done this. It looks like it's trying to silence, the witness and the judge, and it makes it look worse for them, which I think is interesting. Because obviously that's, I'm pretty sure, not her intention. She's just doing this for revenge and reasons, I'm sure.
Well, you're assuming she's working alone.
I am, because did we not see her running away at the end of the last episode? I mean, unless Stormfront let her out, I guess.
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, I'm not sure, but Stormfront might be behind this. Honestly,
she very well might. Because obviously, I think I remember thinking. I don't know how much we spoke about this last week. I don't remember. But obviously, we had the scene of her just driving away at the end, and I remember feeling like she'd escaped in the chaos and they hadn't noticed. But maybe Stormfront did notice, and it's like, no, this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, especially given who she's targeting, because part of me thinks that the arrogance of Stormfront, and maybe even more characters who know about this, is the idea that she's so arrogant that she's like, well, this doesn't even matter if it looks bad. We can still just deny it flat out. I mean, think of real life and the amount of things that are so clearly corrupt, but hey, technically it's not been 100% proven, so we're just going to lie plain to your face and say plausible deniability.
Yeah, I'm not ruling it out whatsoever. I don't disagree that there's a very strong possibility.
I don't think Homelander knew, though. His reaction seemed genuinely confused.
He is befuddled.
he's too caught up in the emotion of his father being there.
Yeah, I'm not sure he even knows that this girl exists. I'm not sure he knows that whole facility exists.
Yeah, and he won't be happy when he finds out, because Stormfront's supposed to be honest about everything. But of course that leads us to their plot, which is that Stormfront's reminiscing about her daughter, who kind of Ellen Ripley style. Not that I'm comparing Stormfront to Ellen Ripley, because very different characters, but the idea that her daughter got old and died because she's been alive so long. Ripley, of course, was in suspended animation, which is a bit different, but you know what I'm saying.
The point stands. We got it.
Yeah, she's sort of looking at this kid in the crowd, and she's like thinking about a kid, and then Homelander just immediately, just like it's like he's not been thinking about it. He's like, oh yeah, I've got something cool to show you. I've got a kid. You like kids? I've got a kid. I
love the idea that he genuinely had forgotten. Like, it just wasn't even part of his mind until, oh, that's a thing. Like, it just didn't occur to him. And
this'll impress her. This'll impress my girlfriend. That's what he's thinking. So he takes her to the kid and Becca, and the fear in Becca's face this entire time, as Stormfront is clearly angling here to be the new mother, and
she's not exactly subtle about it, is she?
Oh, not at all. And they're clearly saying things like, you know, you're more important, you're better than this, you should be doing this. Anytime Becca's like, oh, we'll think about you being able to do something, it's like, no, he's old enough now, he can do it now. Oh, no, you can do this, you can do whatever you want, kind of thing. They just keep stepping on her, and you think she maybe slightly gets through to Homelander, or at least it's presented that way.
Yeah, she takes him aside, and again, I think I've mentioned this the first time this confrontation happened a few episodes ago, but Homelander being like, look, when he learns what you've done, he's going to hate you. And him genuinely relating to this, right? Mm-hmm. And understanding it. I do find that interesting, and it's a genuine angle that he's coming from for once.
To bring this back round to the comparison with Butcher, I think it's interesting here that we're showing Homelander essentially try to mold the kid much like his father did to him, and making the same, if not perhaps a worse example of the same mistake, and being even worse than his father. Whereas Butcher, potentially, as bad as he sometimes is, still has hopes of being better than his dad. And it's one of these things where I feel like, again, this point of comparison is going to be something that we keep coming back to. So this episode's really introduced this idea to the themes of both characters. And you know, here, like, they've made, and again, their currency is hate. Like, they get groups behind them because they make them hate super terrorists, which, let's be honest, is code for immigrants in the context of this. That's all it is.
And they're pretty clear about it here.
Yeah. And then he makes the kid hate Becca. Very intentionally so. They just flat out tell him so that Becca's blindsided by this.
It's not difficult, right, this one. It's not a hard flame to fan. You know, on this one, just show him the truth. And
also,
you know,
can I just say, I think the writers knew what they were doing when one of the examples of something kids like from Stormfront was PewDiePie. I'm just going to say the writers knew what they were doing with using that name.
Oh yeah, I caught that as well. There was something else she said as well that struck me, but I can't remember what the other examples were.
Well, the first one was just 2K. I'm not going to say the basketball games are inherently...
No, there was something else that she said that made me think, oh, they know what they're doing. But PewDiePie, for sure, that was not an accident.
No, not at all. Yes, I mean, the basketball games may have a shitty microtransaction business model these days, but I'm not going to accuse them of supporting supremacy.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch, even for some shitty business decisions.
Yes. I haven't gotten that vibe from them, at least as far as I know anyway. Maybe someone's got a story that I've not heard.
I mean,
but...
if it came out, I wouldn't necessarily doubt it, but let's not get done for libel.
Yes. Yeah, interesting that that's the video game that shows. Like, she says 2K, and instantly I knew she means the basketball game, even though there's technically like 2 or 3 other 2K games that have 2K in the title.
But that's the one, right?
That's the one that everyone talks about, is the basketball one. So they fly off with the kid here, which luckily does keep them away from the vault building whilst everything else is going. Because if they were there, it would be a pretty bad day for. Because Homelander's pissed at the end. See when he's like, "Where's that Starlight? Find her, Ashley. Find her!" Like, what the hell? Other obviously tidbits is that A-Train and the Deep are becoming more pally with the whole cult. Although A-Train is not as brainwashed, because when, what's his face from Timeless, the leader of the church, he comes up and he's like, "Oh, by the way, the Green Arrow knockoff."
It's like, what do you think of him? And Deep's like, "Oh, he was there for me. He's the most compassionate man I've ever known."
Yes, he's dead to us now. You're not allowed to speak about him or consort with him in any way. That's it. He's done. He's done.
He's like, now that you mention it, I did get some toxic vibes from him.
And we see them watching this in the news, and like A-Train's like, "Yeah, but I thought he was your friend," and he's like, "I just chose a child. Now he's dead to me now." And then they watch the trial, of course, and they see everything that's happening. But
I think one of my favorite moments was Deep's reaction during this trial. It might have been my biggest laugh of the episode.
Oh, when he checks his head?
Yeah, like all the heads explode, and Deep just like, "Have I got a bomb in my head?" He just checks it's still there. I don't know, it was just such a little reaction. It made me laugh so much.
Yeah, and the leader's claiming that they've got a meeting with what's his face, Edgar. And he's like, now that Starlight's been a traitor, like they're going to have to, fill
they
some
need
spots.
Trusted quantities.
Yeah, they need trusted members, and that's where you two came in. So, obviously we might see some follow-up to that next episode. Although next week's the finale, so I mean, I don't know where we're going with a lot of this stuff. It feels like a lot of this stuff is still going to be there for next season, I think, because there's so much we're playing with.
We know we're getting another season, so it's fine.
That's true. Maybe a while. But we're getting 2 shows now. We're getting a spin-off as well.
Yeah. And this is the thing, there's always when a show hasn't been renewed, you're like, please wrap up satisfyingly, just enough that if it doesn't, that we're okay. Whereas here, we know, it's like, sure, end on cliffhanger, do what you want, it's fine, we'll be back eventually, and maybe it'll take 2 years, but if it does, I'm sure it'll be fine, and it'll be there, and the quality will be great, and I'll enjoy it then.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have Maeve, who, in a bad place. We mentioned her obviously showing up, because that was kind of her ending, actually, was helping Annie, but, she gets mad and flips the table, because essentially, Elena... when she even says the line,
scared of her.
She says the line in the scene, you want to see the real me, well, this is the real me. And Elena sort of cries and says, "I know, I'm sorry." Because they're basically admitting that the real her scares the shit out of her. And this is really depressing for both of them.
Yeah.
So
as it probably should, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
This is not what she was prepared for.
But Maeve has like a gangbang or something. Like Ashley comes in and she's in the bed with like 3 men. And Ashley gets pissed, like, this isn't gay, this isn't lesbian, we've been marking you as a lesbian, what are you doing? Yeah. And Maeve's just like, Ashley, for once in your life, be a goddamn human. My girlfriend abandoned me. Like, go away.
And she's just like one line of sympathy. Yeah. And then that's it.
Yes. I don't know if Ashley's going to get some big redemptive moment where she stands up to Homelander. Maybe dies instantly as a result, but I could see it happening where she just sort of turns around and tells Homelander what she thinks of him.
I'm okay with her just being spineless and dying.
I mean, she may just be spineless and die, but yeah,
not everyone needs a redemption.
There's possibilities here. And then last thing I suppose we should mention is that Frenchie, who's looking after Gia, which is not her name in this, but that's what I'm calling her.
She's Senator something or other.
He kind of bonds with Kimiko, who finally starts to show him the language. And what I noticed in this scene, actually, it's a really nice little thing in the performance and in the dialogue on the page, is that the way he's talking to her just feels a little bit different, because he's not trying to just constantly like save her, for lack of a better term.
It feels more just genuine, real.
It feels like he's just talking to her, and she's kind of like actually enjoying hearing stories about his past. And then ultimately, he starts talking about how, my mother used to always say there was 2 types of death. There was death when you stop breathing, and there was death when the last person who ever talks about you, basically. And he's like, hey, you should tell me about your family so that they stay alive a little bit longer, but you'd have to teach me your language. And she starts with the word gun, because it's the thing that's sitting in front of her. So
yeah, I like how she pulls out the gun, and I think we were very clearly like understanding what she was doing straight away. But he's like, all right, fine, I get the point.
What's weird about this one though is that the symbol for gun is like the most obvious. Like, see, she didn't even have to pull the gun out. If she just went like this, I'd have been like, yeah, that's a gun. That means gun, clearly. That's
It's
not
a
a
universal
code.
one.
Yeah, that's not a code. That's just what kids do when they're pretending to hold a gun in their hand. That's
Yeah.
So
hey, it's more about the point of her sharing rather than what the word was.
yes. But,
I did like the moment with Frenchie though at the start of this, well, because obviously they're given the job to watch over it, and I think it's Grace's like, and stay on the job this time. Don't don't go off. Whatever the line was, and it hit just a little bit because obviously we'd heard this story last episode as to what actually happened, and and feel bad for him because we know he didn't just leave for no reason. He didn't abandon his post, I think was maybe the phrase that she used.
Yeah, so the end of the episode though, obviously it's mainly the court scene, but the final moment itself is essentially Huey saying, well, what the hell do we do now? And it just ends in a close-up of Butcher, who, like, this might be Butcher unleashed or unhinged, like, whatever he's going to try and do. Because I actually thought there was going to be a land. I thought he was going to end with saying, well, now we just kill the F and C words. Like,
Yeah.
I really thought he was going to, like, no, now we just find out a way to kill them and just go after him.
Yeah, I did like. I think going back earlier on in relation to this, I think it might have been the senator who said it, or if not, it was someone in that room saying, these guys have done more fighting than we've ever accomplished. So we should be listening to them. They know maybe not what they're doing really, but they're somehow good at it. And I think that this here at the end, he was like, well, what the hell do we do now? And it's like, yeah, they'll figure something out. That's kind of what they do.
It's time for some sort of nuclear move, essentially. It's a Hail Mary. They have to do some sort of Hail Mary now, because all of their... because this was the most sort of legit tactic they've ever used, which is, okay, let's get them into the hearing, let's get it on the public record, let's actually get it all out in the open through the system, and that's all fell apart. And it basically means, okay, we can't play by those rules. We have to figure out a way to take down some of these supers, and I'm really excited to see... Because leaving it on this moment of determination of like, okay, we tried this and it failed, and just the anger on his face. Also the visual, by the way, of Starlight's mum being with the gang and sitting on the couch in between everyone was also pretty funny.
It was.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the little things. I'm pumped for the finale, though. I'm pumped for the finale.
Me too. I want to see what I think A-Train gave a deep, like it was like a goldfish or something.
Oh, yeah, he knows his name, yes.
Yeah. Just these little bits like that just made me laugh. Like they're just like almost nothing bits. But I don't know. They add a lot of just comedy punctuation to the episode that keep it flowing and just keep it you always just got a smirk or a chuckle or just something every couple of minutes to keep it not light and breezy, but enough that you're off guard when the dark shit happens.
Yeah. So I had a couple of small critiques of this episode. The first half, I felt like it took a bit longer than usual to really feel why everything fit together. And because there were so many moving parts to everything fit together, some of them felt like maybe a little shortchanged, but fairly minor on the grand scheme of things. Because everything, the master stroke of making Butcher in some small way actually relate to Homelander. And because if one thing is going to maybe like make him realize that he does have to be better than what he is, to be better than what his father tried to make him be. If it's the idea that
fear of feeling like Homelander,
yeah, like the realization that he's actually a little bit like Homelander might be the thing that motivates him to do it.
That might actually be the thing that makes him sick to his soul more than anything else.
Yeah, which I mean, it begs the question as well. I mean, like he doesn't know about the kid yet, and the fact that he's with Homelander and Stormfront. Becca, you have to assume Becca's going to come begging for help now, right? Like she's going to come asking to rally the troops. Yeah,
and it'll be, this before. I don't think he would have done anything to save the kid. Not that out of, being evil or anything, but just more he'd have gone, no, the risk's not worth it. And his inherent bias because the kid's a soup.
But then you look at this idea.
It's like,
look at the idea that they're presented in this episode. It kind of continued. The idea that Homelander is now going to make this kid worse by forcing what he thinks the kid should be onto him, and the idea that Butcher, in a way of not being his father, will try and save the kid from that happening to him. That's actually
Yeah.
the story of redemption. Maybe even more so than Butcher himself becoming better. It's more that he can save this kid from going through it himself.
Right, I think he'll want to do it again for the reason of not letting them have the weapon that he'll grow up to be, but also just to prove that he's better than Homelander, like on a personal level, right? That he can be better than that.
Yeah,
I think that'll be something for his pride that he needs right now.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. It's worth mentioning the writer of this specific episode, the credited writer, is the one who's developing the spin-off. So I mean, take that as a point of comfort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. No, it was really good stuff. Season 2, I had so many concerns in that first episode. They were alleviated a little bit in the second episode, but episode 3 onwards has basically been fantastic, to the point where I'll be surprised if I'm not saying it's better than season 1 by the end, by the end of the finale.
It would have to be a very bad episode next week for it to not be.
Yeah. I think it's built upon everything that it started with really well. And any fears I had at the start of the season about them sticking to the status quo a bit much, it felt like they stuck to it for a couple of episodes for some weird reason, but once they started getting into all the new territory, no, because I mean, even look at Starlight. Not only was she more on missions with the main team throughout the season, now she's at a point where, well, she's not even part of the Seven anymore. They all know she's like with these other people. They know to her she's a villain. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle. Like we've moved on. And
no, not at all. And as I say, I think I've had like quibbles with episodes here or there, and you have like with this one, for example. I had a problem with some of I think it was Annie's dialogue last week with Butcher, but overall, it's been a great season so far, and I'm just so happy to be surprised by this show again.
Yeah, it's almost like it gave us a mediocre first episode just so that it could surprise us all over again.
And I liked that first episode more than you by a reasonable margin, but it's in comparison, like it's been such a step up from there.
Do you know what's funny though? I think what this has done in retrospect is that if season 3, episode 1 isn't that great, they've earned my trust now that they can have a mediocre episode and bounce back from it without almost no fallout.
Unlike some other recent season 2s where we had some problems with the first episode and they just got worse from there. Yes.
Looking at you, Umbrella Academy. So, yes, that's the penultimate episode of the season for the boys, season 2. So we're looking forward to the finale next week. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Liking is super important on YouTube. It is the easy and free way to help us. It's basically an offering to the YouTube algorithm gods to say, hey,
here's some libations.
Put it, out into the ether. Spread it amongst the various flocks and the parishes and the other dumb religious words that I don't know, and just go from there. So you can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble, help keep all the content coming. Catch us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates, but otherwise that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening, and we always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?